Good evening and welcome to OG Dweeb. I'm sitting here with some hot tea. It is currently 25 degrees and snowing near Detroit. The other day I was on one of the gaming groups I belong to, and someone posed the question, what can I get for a family member who's interested in playing Dungeons and Dragons? They've been playing in a little campaign with their friends, and they're looking to get a little more into it. And unfortunately, there weren't many answers given, so I put my 2 cents in, and I thought I'd just do a brief little video here to answer the question. What kind of gifts could I get for someone who is interested in learning to play D&D and who maybe has been into it a little bit but is looking to expand their library? This first product, the D&D starter set, I actually purchased for my niece, and I did get it on sale on Black Friday on Amazon for under $12. However, I will say this from the outset, if you can purchase any of these books at your local gaming or comic book shop, please do. Please support your local businesses if at all possible, if you have one in your area. But anyway, I got this D&D starter set for her. Rather than invest $30 in a player's handbook and her not be interested, I thought this was maybe a better way to go just to introduce her to Dungeons and Dragons. I get her some sort of tabletop game every year, so this is her tabletop game for the year. Also, saving $15-20, I was able to purchase some other gifts that she had actually asked me for specifically. So, this includes a 64-page adventure book with everything the Dungeon Master needs to get started, the 32-page rulebook for playing characters levels 1 through 5, 5 pre-generated character sheets and 6 dice. The adventure that it includes, The Mines of Phandelver, has very good ratings. I have not played it or DM'd it myself, but I have seen it played about the first 4 or 5 hours. It seems to be a very interesting storyline. Judging by reviews, it seems to be very well laid out, especially for a beginning DM. Kind of walks them through it, includes a lot of maps and things like that. I think this is probably the perfect introduction to Dungeons and Dragons. Now, if they've already been playing a little bit, maybe borrowing a friend's player's handbook or what have you, the obvious next in line would be to purchase a player's handbook. I have one myself. Um, as you can see, the suggested retail price here is $49.95. My local shop sells it for $30. That seems to be the going rate at the local shops, from what I understand. But the Player's Handbook is a central reference for every Dungeons and Dragons role player. It contains rules for character creation and advancement, backgrounds and skills, exploration and combat, equipment, spells, and much more. I'm very pleased with my book. I also had the second edition Player's Handbook back in the day. It's very concise, well written, well illustrated, and yes, absolutely, I think everyone, DMs or players, should own a Player's Handbook if you're going to play it in any seriousness. Obviously, you can download the rules for free from Wizards of the Coast on their website in PDF form, but those are only the very, very basic combat rules and such. This is much more detailed, has some variable rules that you can use, several random tables, different items, spells, as it says. This includes all the spells for all the classes and things like that. I would highly recommend this book. Absolutely. If they do not have a player's handbook, this is the purchase that I would make. Now, if they're into DMing or are interested in dungeon mastering, definitely the Dungeon Master's Guide. Now, for the longest time, I only had the player's handbook, and I was only a player. Well, I decided that I would like to try DMing, and I did pick this up, and it is much better from a dungeon mastering perspective. It includes many, many random tables, random encounter tables, things like that. There are additional monsters. The player's handbook includes a few simple monsters in the back, but this has several more. Gives you some more detailed takes on some of the lore, um, detailed combat rules, things like that. This includes a lot of ideas. I would definitely recommend this for someone who's interested in dungeon mastering. Inside, you'll find world building tools, tips, and tricks for creating memorable dungeons and adventures, optional game rules, hundreds of classic D&D magic items, and much more. Again, suggested retail price here is $49.95. I think it's also $30 at my local shop. Um, Now, if they're interested in dungeon mastering, again, it does include some monsters, but if you want to include a little side gift, the monster manual is invaluable. I'm very happy with my monster manual. Pages and pages and pages of stat blocks and illustrations for various monsters from all different types of terrain and planes and anything you can think of, from beasts to fiends to fae, you name it. Absolutely invaluable. I'm very, very happy with this book. Some of you old schoolers may know it as the Monstrous Manual, as it was called back in the second edition. Yeah, I really enjoy this book. I really enjoy the artwork. It says the Monster Manual presents a horde of classic Dungeons and Dragons creatures, including dragons, giants, mind flayers, and beholders. A monstrous feast for dungeon masters ready to challenge their players and populate their adventures. Now, between the Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and the Monster Manual, those are known as the core three books, the three core books. However, if you say someone like how I was, I had the three core books, but I was looking to expand. A book that I recently picked up myself is Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and it includes some expanded rules, a really cool random background generator for characters, which is very helpful. Even down to how many siblings does your character have? Roll a dice, and whatever you roll, that's how many siblings you have, etc. A lot of people can come up with a character and give them an interesting personality and maybe a recent background, but there may be times that questions come up about their past and the player just doesn't have an answer. Maybe, they didn't expect it to come up, but it does on occasion. So here's Xanathar's Guide to Everything is the first major expansion for the 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, offering new rules and story options. Over 25 new subclasses for the character classes in the Player's Handbook, including the Cavalier for the Fighter, the Circle of Dreams for the Druid, the Horizon Walker for the Ranger, and the Inquisitive for the Rogue, and many more. Personally, I am playing right now a College of Swords Bard that gives me dual wielding. It's really cool, especially since, I'm playing a campaign right now where I'm the DM and a player, and then I have an additional player. She's kind of turned into a tank of sorts. It also gives her proficiency in medium armor, which has been very helpful. So yeah, I'm digging the College of the Swords. Dozens of new spells, a collection of racial feats, and a system to give your character a randomized backstory. A variety of tools that provide dungeon masters fresh ways to use traps, magical items, downtime activities, and more, all designed to enhance your D&D campaign and push it in new directions. Whether you're a player or a DM, this book includes a little bit of something for everyone, and I'm very happy with it. I have not completed reading through it. However, I have looked through the subclasses and about the first half of the book, and it's got some really cool stuff. Like I said, I think the random background generator makes it worth it even that. But yeah, it's cool. I'm really happy with this book. Now, let's say you want to expand on your monsters. Maybe give a new challenge to players who, there are many times, and yeah, metagaming's bad, but there are many times where an experienced player like myself, they describe a monster or a beast that comes upon us, and right away I know what it is. I know what its weaknesses are. I know what kind of spells it may cast on us, things like that. But if you want to give some new challenges to your players, there's Volo's Guide to Monsters, and this is the next book that I'm hoping to pick up. Explore the breadth of D&D's monsters in this immersive 224-page volume filled with beautiful illustrations and in-depth lore. Volo's Guide to Monsters provides something exciting for players and dungeon masters everywhere. The esteemed lore master Volothamp Getarm is back, and he's written a fantastical dissertation covering some of the most iconic monsters in the Forgotten Realms. Unfortunately, the Sage of Shadowvale himself, Elminster, doesn't believe Volo gets some of the important details quite right. Don't miss out as Volo and Elminster square off, academically speaking, of course, to illuminate the uninitiated on creatures both common and obscure. And as you can see, Chapter 1 down here contains monster lore. Chapter 2, character races, additional races, presents character races that are some of the most distinctive race options in the D&D multiverse, including the Goblin, the Orc, and the Furbolg. You may have seen some of these already played if you watch Dice Camera Action or Critical Role or what's Adam Kobold, that show he DMs. I watched them play Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. Well, anyway, if you watch any of the D&D shows, the regular D&D shows on YouTube, I'm sure you've seen some of these already played. In Chapter 3, the Bestiary provides game statistics and lore for nearly 100 monsters suitable for any D&D campaign. Gain access to rules and story for dozens of monsters new to the 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, such as the Froghemoth, the Neogi, and the Vargule? Vargue? It's a French name. But again, you see down here price $49.95. Again, it's about $30 at your local shop, I'm sure. And then another one I found to be very interesting, and this is going to be my next purchase, is Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, and this includes some fiends and other ghastly beings for higher level characters to defeat. It says discover the truth about the great conflicts of the D&D multiverse in a supplement for the world's greatest role-playing game. This tome is built on the writings of the renowned wizard from the world of Greyhawk, gathered over a lifetime of research and scholarship. In his travels to other realms and other planes of existence, he has made many friends and has risked his life an equal number of times to amass the knowledge contained herein. In addition to Mordenkainen's musings on endless war in the multiverse, the book contains game statistics for dozens of new monsters, new demons and devils, several varieties of elves and oh gosh, I always pronounce this wrong. Dow Daugr, and a vast array of other creatures from throughout the planes of existence. It says it's a hobby store exclusive. If you want the alternate cover, I don't know if that's still available. Um, the one that I have access to is just the original cover, which is fine with me. Now, in this post that I read, the original poster specifically stated that their family member was new to D&D, but they also asked about some of the actual hardcover pre-written adventures. Now, this isn't only my own personal opinion, but I have seen Storm Giant, Curse of Strahd, Tomb of Annihilation. I've seen some of these played. I have not played them myself nor DM'd them, but some of them have some very specific, I don't want to say rule changes, but rule differences or addition of new rules. Like, for example, the Tomb of Annihilation playthrough that I watched, they were sticklers for being sure that everyone ate and drank. There were rules for getting a hold of bad water. Also, it's a hex discovery, hex crawl. So the movement rules are very important. There's also a variation to where your party can be lost in the jungle, things like that. So if you have somebody very new to D&D, I would recommend buying them the Player's Handbook and or the Dungeon Master's Guide with the Monster Manual first, and having them visit dmsguild.com, and you can download some very basic starting adventures that even a beginner like myself could run easily. A lot of choices for levels 1 through 3 characters. A lot of them are either free or pay what you want. So that's what I would recommend rather than, investing in some materials that could be confusing and frustrating to new players. Get them the core books and have them download free content to start with, and then work on some of the more difficult or rules obscure adventures. Now, admittedly, as well, the adventure books, at least at my local gaming shop, are about $50 a piece. So they are more expensive than the core books as well, if price isn't also a consideration for you like it is for me. So yeah, those are my recommendations. If they've never played before but think it looks cool, D&D starter set. If they've played a little, don't have their own player's handbook, definitely the player's handbook. If they're interested in DMing or they're interested in just an additional lore, Dungeon Master's Guide. If they want to be a DM, definitely the Monster Manual. And then, like I said, Xanathar's expands on the original rules, and Volo's and Mordenkainen's gives new challenges to experienced players. So I hope you find this helpful. Um, you know, I have some family members that are really difficult to buy for. And if you're not a gamer, I could see this being a difficult purchase decision, especially between $30 to $50 a piece. So I hope I've helped you. Leave some comments below if there's anything that I didn't cover, or if you have additional questions on the books that I personally own. I own the Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, the Monster Manual, and Xanathar's Guide to Everything. So if you have any questions on those, feel free to ask me. And I hope everybody has a great night and a happy holiday season.